if you're like me, you might spend a lot of your time in the WordPress space and you're designing and building websites using various tools. So when I started my journey in about 2016, I was using tools that I could easily figure out how to use. And my workflow and the tools that I've used have sort of evolved from there. So what I thought might be an interesting thing to do would be to do a quick design. And you can see right here, I've got a Figma file here that's showing just a single section from a website. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this using two different tools that have two different workflows. And we're going to look at the differences between the building experiences and also the end result. So I'm going to go ahead and start using the builder Divi. So Divi is one of the most popular builders in WordPress, and it's what I started out using in about, well, I think probably about 2017. And I used it pretty much exclusively through till about 2020 before I moved on to some other tools. So I haven't used it a lot lately, but I do have a lot of experience in it. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up this website. Now I've actually already built this page, but I'm going to do it again. I just wanted to make sure that my styling and everything was in place. So I'm going to say I want a new page. And I'm going to call this, I don't know, it doesn't matter. I call it whatever, my hero section. And I'm going to build in the Divi Builder. I'm going to start from scratch. First things first, I have a header and a footer, which I didn't build. They're just generated automatically. And even there's a footer link to Elegant Themes. I'm going to go back into the page editor, and I'm going to change my default template to the blank page. And then go back into the builder and start from scratch again. Now this is a single column layout, and I am going to have a few different elements. So let's look at it. We are going to have an accent heading, a headline here, just a text paragraph, a button, and then we're going to have 3 images. Okay, so the first thing we want is a text module. Now, Divi has kind of, it does this text module where it's basically just rich text. So I'm going to start out with all of my text here. I'm going to say accent heading, and that'll be a paragraph. And then I'll come down here and I'm going to say I want a heading 1, and my heading text is going to be this. Now I'm going to check here. This is going to have added in a bunch of extra stuff that I don't want. Wow. That's a lot of stuff that I don't want. You know what? I'm going to actually, rather than doing that, I'm actually going to type it out. So this one's an accent heading. And then my heading 1 says and if I make spelling mistakes, forgive me, but that's not really the point of this. Compelling headline that leads to conversions. Okay, and then I have some lorem ipsum, and I'm going to just, it doesn't matter, I'm going to just grab some here. Put the text here. And then I'm going to add in a button. And that button will have call to action as the text. Okay. So there's my content. Now I can style the various elements together. So I have a choice with the accent heading here. I could have it be a separate heading, a separate text module, because when I style the text, it's going to style all the paragraph text the same. But I think I will actually, I'll add a class. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm actually going to take the accent heading and I'm going to move it down underneath here. And then inside the accent heading, I'm going to manually, I'm going to put in a P tag. And I'm going to say class equals accent heading. So I can style that. All right. Next thing, I'm actually going to center everything. All of this should be centered here, so let's just center everything. And then I need to go to my sizing here, and I'm going to put my max width at like, I don't know, 720 pixels. I don't normally use pixels for this sort of thing, but I don't think, I mean, I could try like 60 characters and see if it does work. Okay, good. But of course, it's off to the side here, so I need to make sure that that's aligned there. My button, I want my button alignment centered. Okay. And now I can come into my advanced here and into my CSS and go to my custom CSS, and there I can say selector, which is this module, and accent heading. So now I've selected the accent heading, and I could say order -1. Oh, look, it didn't do anything. And that could be because I need to set this to flex, which it's not. Okay, and color. And I need to grab the color from the Figma file. And text transform uppercase. So you can see I'm getting sort of some not fantastic responsiveness to my CSS. Some of it's working, some of it's not. Do I need to like put an important tag on this? Even that's not working. Oh, I see what it is. I did not add, there we go. I needed to put a hex on that, and letter spacing 1 pixel. Okay, and now if I go back into my design, I'm going to change my text to white, and my heading, I need to change that to white as well. So that's text and heading text. We're going to go white there as well. And I can come to my section and change my background. I want a gradient, and I want that to be a elliptical gradient, and my colors. Oh, okay. This one is going to be 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, and this one is going to be not. Come on, why is it giving me problems here? No, we want this to be 1C, 1C, 1C. Okay. Here we go. I still don't have my my accent heading in the right spot. I'm going to go back in here and search and see if I've got display. Nope. I can't change it to display flex. So I have to go into my custom CSS, and which I'm going to do it at the front, at the top here. Selector, display flex, and that's still not working. So what I can do here is I can just copy and paste this to the top, and you may say that's not a big deal. Oh gosh. But it's not ideal from the DOM standpoint, because we want the headline to be the first thing there. Okay. Go ahead and save. And now I'm going to add another row. And in here, we're going to add in 3 images. Well, I'm going to add in an image. And then I've got 3 of these things, and they're going to be formatted the same. So I'm going to try and use a class. So my image class, not a good class name, but you know what, for demonstration purposes, it should be fine. And then I can go ahead and duplicate this and then move the other images into place. Oh. And I can pull these from the database. And I purposely chose images that do not have the same aspect ratio, because most of the time we don't get our images with the same aspect ratio from the client, if the client's providing us with images, and if the client decides that they want to upload images, they never think of aspect ratios. So, we have some weird spacing here that we're going to have to fix. Also, like, these gaps are way too big. Like, I'm looking at that. Now, if I go into this row, they give me the option under sizing. Why that wouldn't be under spacing, I don't know, but they have use custom gutter width, but they just have like 1, 2, 3, or 4. So, like, 2 is still too big. 1 is too small. So basically I'm going to go ahead and hit 1, but I want like a 25 pixel gap. So then I need to go into the custom CSS, and I need to say selector display flex and gap 25 pixels, and that didn't do anything. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now we have our gaps here. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to set these to a square, a 1-to-1 aspect ratio. So if I go here and say custom CSS, and I say selector, and then IMG, so because the image module itself is not an image, it's a div, and it might be like a div within a div within a div with an image inside. It's a total mess. So I'm going to try and put aspect ratio 1. There we go. But it's stretched, and you can see it's only affecting this one. All right, so I'm going to have to address that in a sec. And we're going to go object, fit, cover. Okay, so rather than selector, which is, I'm going to have, what did I call it? My hero image or something like that? Now I have to go back and look. My image class. So let's try that. There we go. My image class. And we're going to put on a border radius of 5M. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Now, a couple of problems that we've created in doing it this way is, like if we go to our mobile, you can see everything breaks. Because we've used discrete pixel values. So I need to go to like my various breakpoints, and I need to say, like, for example, my heading size, my H1, where's my size here? My H1, and then I need to click here, and I need to say, okay, it's going to be 48 pixels here, and say like 32 pixels here. We've got a problem with, like, I've got way too much spacing. Like, especially when we get down to mobile, like, what's with all the spacing? And that's, I put a max width of 60%. I didn't want 60%. I wanted 60 characters. But it won't even let me do 60 characters. So maybe I say like 800 pixels. 800 pixels. 80 pixels. 800 pixels. Okay. And at least this way, when it gets to mobile, the max width is not going to cause it to like have way too much padding. Okay, but I've got these images here that they should be stacked. So I need to go into this guy, and how do I change the layout? I don't even remember. Because I think that if I change this to a one column layout and then go back, yeah, it's broken. So that's not a responsive. Okay. Let's look for stack. No. See, I don't even remember how to do this. Not particularly well laid out anyway. But I've also broken things, so you can see here that I've got to go here and move these back into place. And my gap command didn't really seem to work here, because you can see if I drop another image beneath, it's right on top of this where it should have the gap between images. So this is kind of not ideal, and like this looks like the design, and that's great, but it's not particularly close to what I would want to give to a client, because this is going to break and give me some problems. So I'm going to pause things here, and I will come back in the next segment and we will look at this in a different builder. Okay, in this segment here, we're going to build the same thing again, but we're going to build it using the Bricks builder. And I'm using the automatic CSS framework. So this will allow me to build more efficiently. Actually, I could use the frames library as well and build even more efficiently, but that's sort of just dogpiling on Divi. Divi does have their own layout libraries as well, but I'm just going to build this natively. So I'm going to go ahead and name the page. Doesn't really matter. My new page. Publish. And edit with Bricks. So I'm going to go ahead and add a section. And then you can see here's my container. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add another container. And I don't want that inside the container. I want that to be a sibling of our first container. So this guy is going to be my content, and this one is going to be my images. So I'm actually going to go ahead and name this content wrapper and images. Okay. So inside my content wrapper here, I am going to add in, I'm going to add in a heading, and I'm going to add in 2 text elements and a button. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and name these. I need to get myself a little more real estate here. I'm going to call this hero. Hero, content wrapper, heading, basic text. We need to call this one accent heading. And this one we'll call lead text. And then we're going to have our images. We have 3 images. Actually, I'm going to, well, you know what? No, I can just do that. Yeah, okay. And now I want to work in classes. This is how we work in classes here, and this gives us a lot more scalability, maintainability, and this is going to save us a lot of headaches down the road. And I can assign my classes right here. I'm just going to go ahead and assign various classes. The button doesn't need a class assigned because I'm going to use a generic button class. And I'm going to go ahead and hit apply stylings, apply classes rather. Now, one thing I did not do here, I did not go in and sort of set up some of the default styling, like the button when we built in Divi was already styled. I didn't do that here. I'll do that as we go, but it's very quick. So first things first, I'm going to go into my headline here, and I'm going to write my headline text. And my accent heading, and my lead text, and my button text. Now I'm going to add in a class on this button. We're going to call this button primary. Right now, that's the default styling on the way that I've got this set up, and I will fix that in a bit. My images. One thing I can do here is you can see these are source set images. So I can say what size image I want to load. Like I could get away with using probably, well, no, you know what? I'm going to go a little bigger than that. I'm going to go one size up here. Because I will crop these. 768. And this one here. Okay. So there are our images. I'm going to go ahead and save. And we can start styling. Sorry, did I change my tag? No, this is an 8. This needs to be an H1. Okay. And okay. Gonna go ahead and click on the section itself. Gonna go to the gradient and overlay. Gonna add 2 colors. Now it generates these colors automatically, but I could go in and put in regular colors, but I'm using tokenized colors. Where did I? Okay. I need to double check something here. I need to change this to radial, and my outside needs to be like my neutral ultra dark, and my inside will be neutral dark, or I could go like neutral semi-dark. There we go. That's fine. My content wrapper, I'm going to go ahead and click on the wrapper itself and change the typography to white. And now my accent heading is going to be, let's call this, well, I don't have a color there. So I'm going to go back up to the front end. And I'm going to go into my CSS framework and my color palette. And I'm going to turn on the secondary color. And secondary here is going to be that CCC 845. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and go to my typography, my headings. There we go. I'm just changing my heading sizes here. What I did was I put my base heading to 24 pixels, which would be my H4, and then it's going to multiply by 1.414. So that'll give me my H1 size. I could go in here and like just make it 60, but the benefit of using this setup is that as my viewport reduces in size, the heading is going to resize as well. So I don't need to go in and set like arbitrary sizes at each breakpoint. I'll go to my buttons here, and I want to change my padding on my buttons to 1em and 2em. Oh, and I need to change my my primary color, because that would be, then my button will be the correct shade. So going back to my color palette here, change my primary and save. And edit. Okay. So my content wrapper is already set to flex, so I can tell it I want to align everything center. I'm also going to have all my text aligned center, and sizing my max. I'm going to put my width to 100% with a max width of 800. It seems I may have overdone it with the text scale, so I'm just going to go ahead and there we go. So I just set it to 1.333, which that got me pretty close to what I was looking for here. My accent heading, I'm going to go ahead and change the color to secondary. And I'm going to make the order -1. There we go. Next, I am going to look at my images wrapper here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to, I'm going to use CSS Grid. My gap is going to be space M. There we go. Now, if I click on my image, you'll see here, it says hero image. I'm actually editing the class rather than the individual item. And I can say my aspect ratio is going to be 1. And my object, if it's going to be object fit to cover. All right. Border radius is going to be 0.5 m. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and save. And now I can look at it at various widths. So I can just come in and add any width. I can look at it and go like, these images are getting too small or whatever. So let's just say when we get to here, I think that I should stack these images. Then I can just click on this image wrapper here. And I can tell it grid 1. And now I have my images stacked. And you can see my gap is maintained. My aspect ratio is maintained. Everything's looking good here. So I'm going to go ahead and save. And then we can go back out to the front end and we can look. So there's our Bricks version of it. And here is, well, here is our Divi version of it. So at first glance, oh, I do see that I did not set up the typography perfectly here. I forgot to change this to uppercase with a 1 pixel letter spacing. Okay. So our spacing is a little bit smaller on here than it is here. These ones actually all have identical spacing, where this one, each item sort of has its own spacing, and like the spacing between these two items and this, it's not all consistent, whereas this is consistent. However, perhaps I say I like the smaller spacing. Then what I can do is come up to this wrapper right here, and I can say I want my my row gap here to be small. There we go. Now that's using a token. So the small space is going to be calculated based on some ratios and stuff that I put in, but it's also going to be responsive. So these spaces will actually, as I get smaller on mobile, things will tighten up a little bit. And you can see that this font right here is a lot smaller than it is right here. So our text is not just being changed at breakpoints. It's every time we bring in our width, from the time we hit the beginning of our content width, like about here, as we move in, this text is actually getting smaller the whole time. To a point. Once it reaches a certain point, then it doesn't get smaller. Okay. So that has our second version built, and I'm going to pause here, and then we're going to come into the final section where we're going to look at the code. So in this last section here, we're going to be looking at the code. Now, I know that this is sort of in the weeds, but I really want to contrast the way that these two produce the code. Now, you're not going to see this, but this does translate into differences when it comes to site performance and SEO and accessibility and stuff like that. So the first thing you'll see, I'm going to start here at the body class because the rest of that it can be metadata or whatever. You can see I've got my body class, and then I've opened up all of the things that are sort of we can open and close these, right? So here's my body, and then I do have something here hidden that's a skip link. This is an accessibility thing where if somebody doesn't want to have to go through all of the menu using keyboard navigation, the first link allows them to skip right to the top of the content. So then under that we have our main, which is basically this is where your all of your main content area starts. So if we had a header, it would exist in the body, but it would be above the main part. So then we have our section. So just one section right here, and then we have inside that we have a div, a single container that's our content wrapper, and that contains the header and then the accent heading and then the main text here and then the button. And then we go here into one more div, a container here, and there are 3 images. And that's it. So you'll see under here we've got some footer scripts and such, but essentially we have our overall main section. We have one div that has each of these elements. We have another div that has each of these elements, and we're done. So let's go over to the Divi version here. Ooh, we don't need it quite that big. And if we look here, here's our body, and we have a script there. There is no skip link, so we'd have to put that in ourselves if we wanted that, and that is a sort of important accessibility feature. Well, I'm going to keep going down this list until I get to, here I get to my section, but there's no section tag on this. So that right there is a problem because a screen reader or a bot like Google is looking for a section tag at the top of a section. We don't have one. We just have a div. You can see they've got, I guess this article here would be the section. And then inside that we have a container called entry content. And then we've got another container inside that called ETL post. And then inside that, ET builder inner. And then inside that, ETPB section. Okay, so here's our section. And then inside that, we have another div called a row. And inside that, we have another div that's the column. And inside that, we have a div that's a module. And inside that, we have another div that is the inner, they call it. Then we have the accent heading, the heading, and the text. And then we close that div. And then we come into another div here. And then we have a div that then contains a link. And that's our button. And does this even ET? And then we have another div. And then we have to close all those. And then we come into our second row here. And oh, look, we've got a div. And then inside that div is a div. Inside a div, a span. Inside that, an image. And we have that times 3 before we close. So what you can see here is that, like, just to get from the section to like any of these actual elements, we have layers upon layers of containers within containers, and this is just creating all kinds of bloat. And if you want to style this and you don't want to use the inputs that they give you, because the inputs don't give you full control, the finding the right CSS selector is a total pain, because you've got so many. You've got a box within a box within a box within a box, and you're trying to figure out which box you need to address. So it is like a total pain in the butt. Now, one thing I will give credit to Divi for is that they have, in recent years, trimmed back the amount of extra CSS and JavaScript that they are loading. It used to be that you were loading at least a megabyte worth of JavaScript and CSS on any page in Divi. So I did a quick speed analysis between the two. And if I look at the Divi one, I've got 384 kilobytes of data with 15 requests. And if I look at the Bricks demo, I have 256 kilobytes with 16 requests. So there's actually one more request here, although the difference between 15 and 16 is negligible. We're not talking about a huge difference in page size here, but considering that the images are most of it, the extra 25% or whatever of that, the page size here is just all of that bloated code. Now, this is just a single section, and it's not a particularly complicated one. You can see how if you have a long landing page, suddenly all that bloat starts to really add up. And as I said, it's a total pain to work with. And so, yeah, that's our comparison. So anyway, that's just a little bit of my insight into the differences between different page builders and different workflows.